What is up, everyone? Carmen with Pittsburgh Weiss Schwarz coming at you with something a little bit different today. Today, I want to talk about a format my locals and I have been enjoying called Lost Format or 2020 Format. I actually came up with this on my way back from Georgia with Nico. We were talking about cool previous formats and landed on the topic of, hey, there was that format right before COVID which shut down BCS 2020 for the fall season. And we were thinking about it and talking about it. And we were like, hey, this format's actually like pretty wide. This is like pre-Dow, before that like one big power spike, sort of in power creep. A lot of different things were viable. A lot of different things were strong in that meta. But we wanted to explore it a bit, kicked it around for a long time. And eventually I brought it to my locals. They were down. We played it a couple times. They have really enjoyed it, so I just wanted to run through what it is. Let's just jump right into it. So what is it? Number one, so experience the English format that was a loss to us due to COVID. Like I said, time box to January 31st 2021. So English Weiss Schwarz as it was on that date. The reason it is this date, even though we call it 2020 format, lost format, is because this is to emulate Worlds 2020, which would happen, January, very early February at the latest on the, following that fall season. So that cutoff date extends to both the official set releases and any promos that release for a specific set. So the most recent set is going to be FGO Babylonia. And then just to give an example, something like Fujimi Fantasia Bunko, that's legal because that came out on May 29th, 2020. But ReZero Frozen Bonds, which came out near the end of February in 2021, that's illegal. So it's everything from Fate Grand Order, Absolute Demonic Front, Babylonia, and backwards. If you want a visual for that, you can actually go to the English product page, go to page 8, and it's everything from FGO Babylon backward. That you kind of look at it as you scroll back. And there's actually no ban list during this period. This is pre-Dow, except for that weird Blagrod Batman infiltration ruling. These old formats being kind of all the rage these days, stuff like Edison and Yu-Gi-Oh is popping off. Why would you want to play this format outside of modern White? So, couple goals here. Slow the game down. That's number one. Back in this format, games on average were 2 to 3 turns longer for each player. There's a lot more time in the game. The game has gotten a lot faster. It's undeniable. The other big thing is curbing finishing power and furthermore finishing efficiency. Finishers with decent to good reach have much higher costs. Like to do the same things that decks do now, something like Konosuba had to have like 10, 11, 12 stock to do that kind of stuff. And it's going to dramatically lower the amount of games that you die like before you ever hit 3. Games where a player in the game never gets to the 3rd level and they go from like low to mid 2 to dead, outside of like the crazy negative windfalls and stuff that can happen in Weiss. That happens a lot more when finishers are strong and finishers are cheap. So by turning the clock back and going here, we curb that finishing power. Games where you die from level 2 are exceedingly rare. And the other big thing, this is like probably poor wording, but make your player decisions matter more. So what I was trying to get at with this is modern sets don't like run out of gas because you have stuff like these insanely overloaded cards like Aqua Ricky, where it's a 3500. If it lives, it goes +1. If it dies, it goes +2. If it lives one cycle and then dies, it goes +3. Things like that, like cards that you can slam from the very first turn of the game that give you so much like raw card advantage, like these on death +2s that let you try field super easy every single game. You don't have to like sack a brainstorm while like slamming and try fielding every turn to hope to get your resources back. These cards are so high quality that as long as you get like raw cards, you can like turn them into other cards. And I have the Mio over here as like a poster child for these kind of like overloaded insane utility cards where it's like a drop search on play, a drop search on death, it mochas yourself, things like the UE from Sal 10th anime, things like that. Like, so without these cards, you need to have a lot more forethought. And not only is that like required to pull off your game plans consistently in this format, but you're also rewarded for doing so because you can't like rip so many things out of the ether like in that moment. And the other big part is just to revisit a metagame that we skipped. We never got to play this 2020 format, and there was actually so much that was viable and released at this time. I think it would have been a really cool format, and everything that I've played in it so far, playing with people online, playing with my locals, so much stuff can do well and have like a unique niche in what it does, that I think it's definitely worth revisiting. It's a shame that we missed it. So what then exactly was even played back then? Well, I have a small smattering of viable decks that existed back at that time that were regularly played or would have been been played during the BCS 2020 season. Run them through real quick. Adventure Time was a new kid on the block. Konosuba all around, just insane finishing power deck, especially for the time. Had to build a lot of resources to do it though. Lots of different builds in this one, and there was a lot of contention and arguments about which build was best, and we never got to see that resolved because we didn't have a fall season. Slime, also a new one. This is like the old Pants Door deck, or Pants whatever level 3s that you'd want it to play. Focus primarily on memory compression and healing. First one in English. Bang Dream from Bang Dream Volume 2 and backwards. Have the Choo-Choo there to signify that that is the last set and everything before it that would be legal for play, but Bang Dream was always played and always popular. FGO was new, had the chance to be seen at Worlds that year, but unfortunately didn't get to see it. 8 Standby Fujimi, notably being the only 8 Standby deck in the English meta at that time. Chica Yo, Love Live Sunshine, always gonna be good, always pushing all that extra damage in the mid game with that wrong early play spam strategy. Goblin Slayer, lots of different builds here. Super high card quality, was definitely gonna be one of the heavy hitters of that season. 8 Bar Fate would have been in its prime around then. 8 Door GGO being a very high floor but low ceiling deck that always was showing up even in the previous meta. Memory Snow, because if I don't mention Memory Snow, Andy will yell at me, but you know, as an anti-meta deck that had anti-burn ones in the meta to actually target, might have actually had a chance to do something and be a cool rogue deck. Persona 5, one of those decks that's always around. Same thing with AOT, Win 2K1, not going anywhere, always a staple of the English meta. Albuta with those crazy standby targets like the Futaba that we see there. Blue Yellow ReZero, probably my favorite deck from this time period. Super cool early play strategy deck with a lot of one-ofs and crazy things going on. There was that Book Pants deck that Riaz was playing with Alicization Focus that did really well at Weiss Schwarz Invitationals back in the day, which would have been available in that meta. Overlord was also a recent release. And then, of course, we cannot forget a staple of the English meta alongside AOT, Bar Book Sal. And there was a lot more too, but this is just a small list of things that you could play or you would be likely to see if you stepped into a regional in that fall season. So I know a lot of these English cards are old and it is hard to get, you know, people to invest and get in this old stuff, but thankfully we have other ways to try out this format. One of the easiest ways to help your locals try out this format is to make sure that you allow JP editions of cards if you decide to run this. So something like the Mordred Ricky from Apocrypha, that's $20 each in English, but it's only 220 yen each in Japanese. Something else you can do is allow proxies. Make sure you do it within reason. Make sure they're readable, uniformly sized, things like that. Don't want people just slipping little pieces of paper in front of basic lands or something like that. Got to be some amount of effort there if you're going to have a full proxy deck, but that is something we've had success with at my locals, allowing both of these things to, you know, give people a bigger pool to play in paper. But if you don't even want to do it in paper, you can actually try the format digitally. The Weiss Fight, of course, supports anything that's available on Encore decks, but that's manual. What you can also do is try out the automated simulator. Something that I have been working on is sort of a modification to have only the sets that are legal for this format be available for use. So let's go take a look at that right now. So as you can see here, if you're familiar with the sim, you'll notice that it is now blue coded instead of green coded. That is primarily for in the future, if we decide to run cool online tournaments utilizing the simulator for the format, we can easily see that people are playing on the right version so that they can't be playing cards that were illegal or things like that. As we jump over to the deck editor, you can hear one of the other things that I've done, which is add a little bit of background music to some of the parts of the sim, just to improve the user experience. You can turn that off if you'd like. That is easily disabled. As we can see here, if we click on series, only sets legal for the 2020 format, the Lost format, are available in the simulator. So if you come in here and you look at your deck list or things like that, it's going to use a different list of deck lists than if you have another installation of the simulator before, so you won't have to worry about things crossing over. Another big reason for doing this. So that background music that I mentioned, it's actually fully user customizable. There's up to 6 in-game track lists with up to 3 songs for at the game that you can modify, as well as the background music in the deck editor. I'm really partial to Master Duel, so I set my music to some of the Master Duel soundtrack. You can hear it here. And then if I reset it, it's going to play a different track list. You might have also noticed some of those sound effects, which I also added, which you might be familiar with if you played something like EDO Pro before. I think it's really funny. As you can see, some of those right there. And if you don't like the sound effects or any of the background music or anything like that, again, you can disable it all by just going into your OS and mute the program forever. But I think it adds a nice effect. All the multiplayer features, of course, still function. So if you have somebody else with this version of the simulator, you can hop in and play games against them. And with that, I think we're going to wrap up here. I hope you all enjoy this format. I hope you all try it out. I think it's really fun to play. If you're looking to grab that simulator mod, I'll have the link to it hosted on my GitHub below. You can grab it from the releases section. Gonna keep that up to date, and you can also file pull requests and things like that if you find bugs, raise issues with cards and things like that. Babylonia was something that I coded and added for specifically this format. So if you want to get in there, beat that up, definitely test a lot of these old sets. Most people playing in the simulator are either playing only their favorite sets all the time or brand new sets that they don't currently have in their hands yet. So a lot of these older sets, you know, back in around this time period, haven't been vetted as much. So there's probably a lot of bugs out there that we need to find and fix and report. So definitely give that a look. That will all be linked down in the description. And with that, Pittsburgh Weiss Schwarz signing off. Hope you all enjoy Lost Format, and we will see you in the next one.